The mission of the Holocaust Center is to educate people of all ages and backgrounds about the Holocaust and about the dangers of intolerance and all forms of hatred.
I'm a director of the Montreal Holocaust Museum.
But by far the most touching and compelling part of the exhibition is the Holocaust survivor testimony.
After 50 years, I managed to be able to speak about our adventures.
Today, you have a very special and unique opportunity because you get to hear the testimony of Walter Apsel. He's a Holocaust survivor and he's a true humanitarian. So it's my honor to welcome him.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Did they wake you up early? Yes. Are you half asleep?
No.
No. As Nancy told you, I was born in Vienna, Austria. You know any famous Austrians? How about your new governor of California, Schwarzenegger? He was born in Austria. Then we have people that are a little less important, like Mozart, Dr. Freud, Sigmund Freud, Strauss, the Waltz King, and myself, of course.
I go and speak to children in schools, universities, churches, in order to bring the message of tolerance and respect.
In 1938, I was 13 years old.
And the life of a little Jewish boy changed dramatically.
The German army marched in, and we became part of Greater Germany.
Nein, meine Kameraden, kann es nicht anders sein und es wird auch nicht anders sein.
Can you imagine if tomorrow the United States say, well, Canada becomes our state number 51?
From one day to the next, I wasn't allowed to go to school. I wasn't allowed to go to a cinema, to a theater, to a swimming pool.
Even the benches in the parks were marked forbidden for Jews.
That's where I made my first act of resistance, crossing the park. I kind of risked half a behind and half a second, and I sat down on the forbidden bench.
And he said, that's it. I sat on your bench.
Nobody arrested me.
That was my first act of resistance in 1938.
Luckily, my dad encountered one of his friends on the street, and he said,
this is crazy. This can't last, really.
Why don't you try to get out of here?
Maybe this can last a month or two.
And whenever this situation with the Nazis is over, you can come back. And by kind of a miracle, we obtained a visa for Belgium.
A visa is not only a credit card, it's a permit to enter another country.
And we left everything, our apartment.
My dad had a little business making leather goods like belts. We just closed the door, and with a little suitcase we went to Belgium.
In Belgium, of course, we had no money because we were only allowed to take 10 marks a person out of the country, which was about $5 a piece, $5 a piece. So we arrived in Belgium more or less penniless.
We managed to rent an apartment and kind of struggle.
I lived in Belgium for 13 years without ever obtaining the Belgian nationality, even though I was adopted by a Belgian eventually.
The trouble was that in 1939, Germany declared war on Poland, and the British and the French declared a war on the Germans. And in 1940, Germany attacked Belgium, Holland, and France.
The Belgian army fought for about 18 days.
After that day, the King Leopold said it's useless, they're too strong for us, and we were again under the domination of the Germans.
For about 2 years, the Germans really didn't bother with the Jews in Belgium. They were busy invading Russia, and they had other problems.
After that, they tried to educate the Belgians that we were bad people and they should arrest us.
I was about 16 when we saw a poster that showed the Jewish conspiracy over Europe with a big fat British Jew shaking hands with an ugly Russian Jew, and you had an ugly face like a devil in the center. We saw that poster. That poster was trying to educate the Belgians. And my sister and I, my dad posted us in front of that poster, and you saw those two young, innocent kids in front of this ugly poster. We found it so ridiculous. As a matter of fact, the Belgian resistance already tore part of the poster and stuck another V for victory next to it. So not only we had the reaction that this was ridiculous, but the Belgian resistance also knew that this was fake and this was exaggerated. The Queen Elizabeth of Belgium and King Leopold, they were absolutely adamant for the Belgian police not to do that.
Compared to the French, who in Paris, they said we want 40,000 Jews, and the Vichy police themselves arrested the Jews of Paris.
They only got 16,000. They parked them in what was called le Vélodrome d'hiver, that's a sports arena. And they left them there for about a week without food, without water.
They separated the men from the women.
And they sent them to Auschwitz via Drancy, the assembly camp outside of Paris.
Then they separated the women from their children. And the French were left with about 3,000 little kids by themselves,
which they parked in a concentration camp south of Paris that's called Pithiviers. And the French asked the Germans, what's with those kids? Could you not take those too? They said, no, we need permit from Berlin. Don't ask me why.
Again, they asked, how about those kids?
Eventually, the children were allowed to be stuffed into cattle cars, and they went straight to Auschwitz into the gas.
After this was known in France, you had like a reaction. The small clergy, the priests in the villages, they started helping Jews. There's a village east of Lyon called Le Jambon. In that village of 5,000 Huguenots.
The Huguenots were killed in France by the Catholic rulers of France in those days.
And they remembered what happened to their ancestors. And they said, we are 5,000. We want to save 5,000 Jews.
And that's exactly what they did. Any Jew that reached that little village was saved.
Imagine if the rest of the population of Europe would have acted like those people in Le Jambon.